My cheating wife's excuse for her affair with her boss. It's just for work. But I know the truth. Hey there, folks. Great to see you all again, thanks for tuning in. So, without further ado, let's dive in. I mentioned to my wife, Jessica, that my seminar wrapped up a day ahead of schedule, but alas, my flight was still locked in like a stubborn old mule. So, it looks like I'll be back on Tuesday evening, just in time to catch up on all the thrilling adventures I've missed, like laundry and meal prep. She was meant to grace me with her presence at the airport around 6 p.m. She grumbled about me disappearing for yet another night, but then she added with a grin that she'd still be glad to see me when I returned. After an hour of deep contemplation, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I had been gallivanting away from home far too often. It was high time I focused on my wife, the incredible woman who had been putting up with me for 17 years. I found myself at the airport, making one of those desperate attempts to patch things up, like a character in a novel who realizes it's now or never. Just when I was about to throw in the towel, I spotted a flight heading to an airport not too far from my hometown. Talk about a twist of fate. The airport I usually favor is a good hour's drive north of my humble abode. The other airport was a good 2-hour drive down south, and let me tell you, I had never set foot in that place before. After a quick glance at the schedule, I noticed a flight to that airport was taking off in just half an hour. So, I strolled over to the counter, hoping to snag a ticket before it was too late. I was absolutely blown away by how effortlessly it all came together. In less time than it takes to binge-watch a sitcom, I was soaring through the skies, and just 3 hours later, I was back on solid ground, ready to stretch my legs and maybe grab a snack. I could snag a rental car and be back home by the stroke of midnight, just in time to catch my favorite late-night snack. Jessica really could have come up with a better way to express her joy over my early return, don't you think? I conjured up a mental list of possible reactions and couldn't help but grin to myself. I thought, why not keep her on her toes? So, I opted to skip the call and show up unannounced, like a plot twist in a novel nobody saw coming. Just as the clock was about to strike midnight, I rolled up to my building, feeling like the protagonist in a novel where the plot thickens at the witching hour. The house loomed in the shadows, a silent sentinel, and Jessica's car was conspicuously absent, as if it had decided to take a little vacation without her. As I lugged my bag through the door and began the grand unpacking ceremony, I couldn't help but feel that something was a bit off. Where on earth could she be at this hour? I figured it was best not to leap to any wild conclusions just yet. I gave her cell phone a ring. She picked up on the third ring, as if she had a personal countdown going on. "Greetings," she mumbled under her breath, as if the words were trying to escape her lips but got lost along the way. Her voice had that delightful, drowsy quality, like a cat just waking up from a sunbeam nap. "Hey there, it's your favorite person. I thought I'd give you a ring and check in on how things are going with you." I told a little fib. Everything's just peachy, but let's be real, Michael, it's well past midnight, and I was in the land of Nod. She shot back a response. "I'll swing by the airport at 6 tomorrow to scoop you up." "Oh, no need to fret," I assured them. I couldn't help but feel a mix of confusion and intrigue when I found out she was catching some Z's, but not in her own bed. "Hey there, where in the world are you hiding?" I gave our home phone a ring, but all I managed to reach was the ever-so-chatty answering machine. "Oh, come on now. You really think I'm going to spill the beans that easily?" Here I am, nestled in my cozy bed, like a burrito wrapped in blankets, contemplating the mysteries of the universe, or maybe just the next snack I'll indulge in. It looks like our home phone has decided to take a little vacation. It's not working at all. A technician is swinging by tomorrow to unravel the mystery of what's gone awry. It seems a handful of folks have been singing the same tune to me. She let out a big yawn, as if the very act of breathing was a chore that required a dramatic flair. "If you need to get in touch, just give me a ring on my cell. I promise I won't bite, unless you're calling to ask about my latest writing project." My head was doing a little dance, twirling like it was auditioning for a role in a circus act. Could she possibly be tucked away in bed upstairs? There I was, suitcase all unpacked and ready for adventure, but she was nowhere to be found. Well, that was a long shot, wasn't it? She was telling a whopper, and I could see right through it. But seriously, why? Why, you ask? Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's like trying to find the last slice of pizza at a party. Everyone wants to know, but no one seems to have the answer. Looks like I'll be missing the 6 o'clock flight, so no need to roll out the red carpet for my pickup. I gave her a heads up. Well, it seems our little adventure just got a bit extended. Guess we're sticking around for a few more days. I'll give you a ring as soon as I nail down the exact time and day of my grand return. Oh, sweetheart. Aw boy, the thought of you not being around is like realizing I've run out of coffee on a Monday morning. It's going to be a tough adjustment, for sure. Hurry back home when you can, she said with a playful smile. I'm absolutely buzzing to see you soon. I'll keep in touch, darling. My apologies for interrupting your beauty sleep. Rest easy and let your dreams be filled with thoughts of yours truly. I've wrapped it up. I will, I promise, she declared with a nod, as if sealing a deal with the universe itself. Was that her giggle I just heard as she wrapped up the call? I picked up the phone and dialed the home number, and wouldn't you know it, it rang just like a phone should, no surprises there. I even thought about picking up the phone and having a delightful chat with, you guessed it, myself. But, alas, I lacked the courage for such a riveting tete-a-tete. I trotted up to our bedroom, peeking under the bed and scouring every nook and cranny where a sneaky little creature might be hiding. You never know where they might decide to play hide and seek. Well, folks, it looks like the king has taken his final bow and exited stage left. I'm in sales, not exactly launching rockets here, but let me tell you, my instincts were on point. An unpleasant odor wafted through the air, something decidedly off-kilter. What was I thinking? That's just plain ridiculous. Well, that was my straight-up truth to myself. The big reveal. The following morning, I rose with the sun and decided to play a little game of musical chairs with the rental car, shifting it to the other side of the street. Just as the sun was starting to stretch its rays around 7 a.m., I spotted Jessica's car rolling up to the house like it was on a mission. There was a fellow hanging around her. I tucked myself away in the storage closet by the foyer, leaving the door just a crack open for a peek at the world outside. Jessica turned the key, and in they strolled, like a couple of curious cats on a new adventure. I just need to change clothes and get ready for work, she said to him, as if preparing for a grand adventure rather than a day at the office. I'll snag an outfit for tomorrow as well, so we can avoid the morning rush back here. Who needs that kind of chaos, right? I'll return in a jiffy, just give me 10 minutes. I'd lend a hand, he chuckled, but then we'd find ourselves in bed again, and I'd have to let you go for showing up late. I really doubt you're going to fire me, Jessica shouted from upstairs. It seems you really enjoy having me on your team, don't you? Even your wife believes I've got the secretary gig down to an art form. What would you say to her? Well, here we have Jessica's new boss, Mr. Thompson. Quite the character, I must say. The very same fellow she once labeled as a total pain and full of himself. I found myself pondering what her reaction would have been if she had actually developed a fondness for him. He just joined the company a few weeks ago, if my memory serves me right. Now that's what I call a speedy operator. I mentioned you were the same age as her mom and tipped the scales at 100 kilos, and her boss couldn't help but chuckle. Well, when she spots you, I guess I'll have to hand you your walking papers, regardless. Then he added, I told her I'd be on the hunt for a place to live this week. Well, it seems my grand adventures will be confined to the hotel for the next few days. Who knew room service could be so enticing? Jessica strolled back into the room, chuckling like she'd just heard the best punchline of the day. She was a vision, and Mr. Thompson, who, by the way, went by James, swooped in like a romantic hero, planting a kiss on her lips that was both slow and passionate, as if he had all the time in the world. Spoiler alert, he didn't. I found myself seriously considering the idea of taking an umbrella from the shelf and giving him a rather unconventional gift, right up his backside. How about you join me tomorrow evening right here, James? It could be a blast. Jessica tossed out the idea of grabbing dinner, promising we'd be back by 8, like a well-timed magic trick, but with food instead of rabbits. Perhaps when we get back, you'll strike gold and catch a glimpse of the house after enjoying a delightful little conversation with its owner. If you're up for it, I can take you on a grand tour of every nook and cranny around here. How about a cozy little stroll just for you? What happens if the hubby strolls in ahead of schedule? James, you're like a cat on a hot tin roof, she chuckled. Michael's going to ring me up so I can swoop in and rescue him from the airport chaos. He's the kind of guy who always manages to drop a hint a whole day in advance. If he doesn't call today, it looks like he's not gracing us with his presence tomorrow. That's good enough for me, James declared, as if he were the final judge in a culinary competition, ready to taste the dish and give it a thumbs up. I'd prefer not to have a jealous husband plotting my demise, thank you very much. Oh, Michael's just a big ol' sweetheart, Jessica chimed in, her smile as bright as a summer day. He'd likely hand you a cold beer and chuckle, saying sorry for playing matchmaker and sending me your way. Sounds like a bit of a weakling to me, James chuckled, shaking his head as if he'd just heard the punchline to a bad joke. If my husband ever decided to stray, let me tell you, he'd be in for a night of Michael's little bells that he wouldn't soon forget. Fear is what keeps you gentlemen in line, Jessica said, a playful grin spreading across her face. Then she added, well, most of the time, at least. Looks like you're not exactly trembling in your boots when it comes to your wife, huh? Oh, trust me, I'd be in a world of hurt, James shot back. Well, if I can manage to keep my head above water, I'll consider it a win. My manhood can take a backseat for now. Well, thank goodness she's in Houston. That gives me a nice warm blanket of safety to wrap myself in. That was the final sound that tickled my ears as they strolled out the door, leaving me in a delightful mix of confusion and amusement. My face was as red as a tomato, and I could practically hear my blood pressure doing a little dance, skyrocketing to new heights. It wasn't merely that she had a wandering heart. My wife had a special talent for making it clear just how much she couldn't stand me. I plopped myself down and mulled over the whole mess. Gradually, a scheme began to unfold, the groundwork. It popped into my mind that Jessica had mentioned her new boss was making the big move from the company's headquarters down in Houston. I had to uncover his full name, so I dialed up a few numbers like a detective on a mission. A few casual questions tossed at the secretary over at Jessica's office turned out to be the golden ticket to all the info I was after. Meet James Thompson, a name that rolls off the tongue like a well-practiced joke at a family gathering. He was the proud husband of one wife and the slightly bewildered father of two teenage kids. She was sticking around in Texas until the school year wrapped up, after which they'd make their way to Springfield to reunite with James. In the meantime, he was on a nightly quest for the perfect house, armed with nothing but his briefcase and a sense of humor. While diving into the depths of an online directory, I stumbled upon 3 James Thompsons hanging out in Houston. Who knew there were so many of them? It's like a family reunion waiting to happen. I struck gold on my very first call. Hey there, Mrs. Julia? Mrs. James Thompson inquired. Indeed, I am Mrs. James Thompson. Need a hand with something? She shot back. So, does your husband work for Quantum Solutions? I inquired, and sure enough, he does. Hello, this is Robert Green calling from Quantum Solutions, he said, as if announcing the arrival of a long-lost friend at a party no one wanted to attend. I may have told a little fib. We're cooking up a little surprise shindig for your husband, James, and for you too. We're offering round-trip tickets to Springfield and back, because who wouldn't want to experience the wonders of a town famous for its donuts and a certain yellow cartoon character? James is in for a real shocker. Are you going to be able to swing by? I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being a total jerk. But hey, when it comes to love and war, all bets are off, and let me tell you, I was in the thick of it. I could always ask my sister to take care of the kids, she said with a shrug. Well, that's just adorable. So, when's this little shindig happening? I nearly spilled the beans, but I decided to keep my mouth shut instead. Tomorrow night, the curtain will rise. Make sure to hop on American Airlines Flight 1435, or you might just find yourself stuck in the airport with nothing but a pretzel and your thoughts. Just slap that ticket on your card, and the company will send James a check, I said, keeping it as straightforward as a Sunday morning. Don't worry, we'll have a friendly face waiting for you at the airport. The flight touches down at 5 p.m., and the festivities kick off at 8 o'clock. Plenty of time for a quick nap or a snack, just don't forget to set your alarm for the fun. Well, it looks like we've got all the time in the world, don't we? Hey, just a friendly reminder, let's keep this under wraps, alright? She swore on a stack of novels not to spill the beans, and just like that, I hung up the phone. So, I embarked on the grand adventure of dialing up Jessica's friends and family, all in the name of throwing her a surprise party that would knock her socks off. I mentioned that she snagged a promotion from her boss, and I figured that was as good a reason as any to throw a little celebration. It looked like everyone was on board with that little chat and grasped the importance of keeping it under wraps from Jessica. I told them to swing by her place by 7, just to make sure they beat Jessica to the punch. Not wanting to earn the title of host with the most regrets, I picked up the phone and dialed a local restaurant to arrange a feast of food and drinks for the next evening. I mentioned that we ought to set everything up on the veranda, right next to the living room and our lovely pool. Jessica had always dreamed of throwing a fabulous bash on that veranda, where the sun could shine and the snacks could disappear faster than you could say party time. I figured she'd be head over heels for this. I handed out the instructions like a seasoned tour guide, letting them know that the house might be as empty as a politician's promises when they showed up. But hey, they could just haul everything around to the open veranda, no big deal, right? The showdown. The following day, I strolled into the airport a solid 30 minutes ahead of schedule, feeling like a time traveler who had mastered the art of punctuality. As the passengers shuffled into the baggage claim area, I casually approached a couple of solo women and inquired if they happened to be Mrs. Julia. As I was busy interrogating one of them, a voice suddenly chimed in, aimed right at me. "Greetings, I'm Mrs. Julia," she declared with a flourish. "So, are you the one here to rescue me from this spot?" It was one of those moments where my jaw nearly hit the floor. There she was, and I was left searching for words like a lost tourist in a foreign city. She had that movie star vibe, you know? Like, if Hollywood ever needed a stand-in for glamour, they'd just send a search party for her. It took me a couple of attempts before I finally got my act together and replied. My wife was certainly a looker, but this one? She was the gold standard, the kind of beauty that makes you question your life choices and wonder if you should start taking better care of yourself. "Hey there. I'm Michael, your friendly neighborhood chauffeur, ready to whisk you away." So, I casually mentioned that my wife is in the employ of your husband. "So, has he ever brought up Jessica in conversation?" "Oh, absolutely, he has." "Well, I figured her husband would have a few more gray hairs," she replied with a chuckle. Goodness gracious, what a character. He really went and told his wife that Jessica was, well, a bit long in the tooth and carrying a few extra pounds. I had to come up with a plan quicker than a cat on a hot tin roof. She had that look, you know? The kind that makes you think she might be hiding a secret or two, like a cat with a stash of catnip. They say I tied the knot with a woman who's both older and a bit more generously proportioned. I always say she's simply got more experience under her belt, and let's be honest, there's just more of her to adore. I presented my take on the tale. After a brief pause, she flashed a smile that could light up a room. That was a close one. We scooped up her bags and made our way to the parking lot, like a couple of packed mules on a mission. We rolled up to my house at the delightful hour of 6:30, just in time for whatever mischief awaited us inside. I was in the middle of telling Mrs. Julia that the party was an outdoor shindig to celebrate her husband's and my wife's birthdays when the guests began to trickle in. The catering crew was wrapping up their setup, and I have to say, I was quite impressed. It seemed like a party that had rolled out the red carpet for the elite, complete with confetti and a side of champagne dreams. Who knew it could be done with such finesse? I was completely in the dark about that. By 7:30, all the folks I had summoned had arrived, like moths to a flame, or maybe just hungry for snacks. I had requested they park behind the church, just half a block away, to keep our driveway nice and clear. You know, the kind of clear that makes you feel like a parking lot magician. I told everyone my grand plan. I'd be lurking in the living room like a ninja, and as soon as the guests of honor rolled up to the house, I'd flick off the deck lights like a pro. It was going to be a moment worthy of a standing ovation, if only I could keep from tripping over the coffee table first. That would be the cue for everyone to zip it and embrace the sound of silence. We had these fancy sliding glass doors that opened up to the veranda, complete with vertical blinds that could be adjusted by tugging on a cord, just a mere 4 inches of effort, and voila, instant ambience. There was this nifty little cord that you could tug on to pull the blinds apart, like a magician revealing their next trick. Thicker curtains, perfect for those chilly days, draped over the doors too. They were just the right size for me to duck behind, stretch out my arm to grab the blind cords, and flick the switch for the deck light without anyone noticing my stealthy mission. A couple of ticks before the clock struck 8, I spotted Jessica's trusty steed rolling into the driveway like it owned the place. I flicked off the deck lights and ducked behind the curtains like a kid playing hide-and-seek, hoping the night wouldn't give me away. It was as if someone had hit the mute button on life itself. As the door swung wide, Jessica and James burst into laughter, stepping inside like a couple of characters straight out of a light-hearted novel. It was heartwarming to see them enjoying themselves so much. I'm practically on fire with impatience. James let out a hearty chuckle. Well, here we are, finally. I was starting to think it would remain a figment of my imagination forever. Hey, swing by here ASAP. He lifted Jessica's dress over her head, unveiling her in nothing but a cheeky thong. She chuckled softly as she pulled it down over her adorable, round backside. Wow, you're always in the mood, huh? Jessica exclaimed, her eyebrows shooting up in disbelief. I'm all set if you are, champ. James gave her a gentle nudge onto my armchair, and with a mischievous grin, he decided it was time to unfasten his pants. In that instant, I made the grand decision to gingerly pull back the blinds to the veranda. With shadows lounging on the deck and a cozy glow inside the room, it was as if the outside world had decided to play a game of hide-and-seek, only the seekers were blissfully unaware of the hiding spots. Jessica and James had eyes for no one else but each other, as if the rest of the world had decided to take a coffee break. But everyone on the veranda had a front row seat to James giving it his all with Jessica, and let me tell you, it was quite the show. He barely made it a minute or two before he reached his grand finale. At that point, I had casually settled into a chair on the sidelines, taking in the whole spectacle like a bemused spectator at a circus. "I'm done," James groaned, as if the weight of the world had just decided to take a seat on his shoulders. He delivered a couple of last-minute thrusts, like a writer trying to wrap up a chapter just before the deadline. Jessica spun around like a whirlwind, dropped to her knees, and decided to give him a taste of her enthusiasm. As she went about her business, she glanced up and caught sight of me perched there, observing the whole scene unfold. She almost turned into a human fountain. James had a firm hold on her hair, playfully nudging her to wrap things up. Jessica let out a sound that was about as clear as a foggy morning, leaving everyone scratching their heads, wondering what on earth she was trying to communicate. Her eyes were as wide as dinner plates, fixed on me like I was the last slice of pizza at a party. At long last, she mustered the strength to shove him aside and reclaim her mouth for her own. She stared at me, her chin and cheeks still glistening with the remnants of his release. "What brings you to this fine establishment?" she insisted. I found myself a tad let down by a question that felt like it had been pulled straight from a tired old playbook. Perhaps her brain had decided to take a little vacation, completely overwhelmed by the shock. Or perhaps it was simply the wild romp she just experienced. "Welcome to my humble abode, Jessica." "Well," I said, "my name's right there on the deed, like a VIP pass to this whole property shindig." "I thought you'd be off gallivanting for a few more days," she exclaimed. "Well, that's as clear as a sunny day," I remarked with a hint of sarcasm. "I suppose I should be on my way," James mumbled, as if the very act of leaving required a grand announcement. "I've got a to-do list longer than a novel, and trust me, it's not a bestseller. How about a beer or something else?" I inquired, trying to sound casual while secretly hoping they'd say yes. James and Jessica looked like they'd just seen a ghost when I made my offer. It was clear as day that James was having one of those light bulb moments, realizing that Jessica had been spot on when she suggested I might just hand him a cold one if I stumbled upon them in a cozy little rendezvous. I couldn't help but grin as I watched the light bulb flicker on above his head. Just as James was about to respond, his wife made a grand entrance from the veranda, like a whirlwind with a purpose. She was wielding a hefty handbag like it was a sword, swinging it with all the gusto of a knight preparing for battle. James was so taken aback by her sudden appearance that he completely forgot to put up his guard. It seems he took a little leap and ended up just a hop, skip, and a jump away from his original spot, about 5 feet, to be exact. Just a step behind her, Jessica's mother and sister strolled into the room, as if they were part of a well-rehearsed family entrance routine. Jessica was still in her birthday suit, completely unadorned by fabric. "Come on, Jessica, time to put on some clothes, you little heartbreaker." Her mother shot her a look that could curdle milk, scooping up Jessica's dress and thrusting it into her hands like it was a hot potato. "And for heaven's sake, wipe that off your face, sis," chimed in Jessica's sister, Kate, with a smirk. "Well, that was a show and a half you put on for us all. Have you ever thought about trying your hand at the adult film industry? It might just be your calling." Jessica stood there, mouth agape, as if she'd just seen a cat wearing a top hat. Words? Nope, not a single one was coming to her rescue. I flicked on the deck lights, and there she was, the center of attention for about 20 pairs of eyes, all fixed on her like she was the main event at a circus. I ventured out into the great outdoors, armed with a plate ready to be piled high with potato salad and chicken wings, because who could resist such culinary delights? So, I snagged a cold can of beer from the fridge and strolled back inside like I was on a mission, because, you know, hydration is key. I plopped myself down, fork in hand, while James wrestled with the chair like it was a wild beast, and Jessica was on a quest to rediscover her voice, which seemed to have taken an unexpected vacation. In the wake of it all, I had to concede it was quite the unpleasant spectacle. As I gnawed on a wing, it suddenly dawned on me. This mess? Oh, I assure you, I was merely an innocent bystander in this chaotic comedy of errors. Jessica and James had really outdone themselves this time, dragging along everyone who cared about them for the ride. Ultimately, it turned out that letting the truth spill out was the best option. Who knew honesty could be so liberating? It's best to get a good look at the mess you're wading through and then just keep on truckin'. In the end, all the chaos took a deep breath and decided to chill out. Jessica's cousin took the wheel and whisked Mrs. Julia off to a cozy little motel, where the adventures of the day could continue in style, or at least in a slightly more comfortable setting. One of James's cousins swooped in like a superhero, helping him to his car and then whisking him away to a motel for a little R&R. Jessica's mom popped the question, "Hey, wanna come home with me?" But Jessica, with a grin, politely waved it off like a pesky fly. "I know you're probably feeling a bit down," her mother said to me. Honestly, Jessica could use a good talking to, but let's be real, she's probably already got her fair share of woes. And just like that, they were gone. Jessica vanished into the bathroom, and soon enough, the sound of the shower filled the air like a symphony of splashes. That night, I experienced a level of enjoyment with beer and wings that I never knew was possible. It was like a culinary revelation, a moment where flavor and happiness collided in the most delightful way. Here I am, perched on my own little island of solitude, sifting through the evening's escapades like a detective with a magnifying glass, only my clues are a bit more muddled and my suspects are probably just my friends trying to have a good time. Every now and then, the stars do a little dance, and lo and behold, the plan actually comes together like a well-rehearsed comedy sketch. Once I had polished off every last morsel of salad and wings that my stomach could handle, I set about tidying up the aftermath. Cleaning up after that bunch was no small feat, let me tell you. It felt like I was in a never-ending game of hide-and-seek with all the crumbs and cups they left behind. I had to bundle up the leftovers and tuck them away in the fridge and freezer, like a little food hibernation for later. Who knew my culinary creations needed a cozy nap? As the clock struck midnight, I plopped down at the table with my final beer of the evening, feeling the weight of the world lift off my shoulders. Jessica strolled into the room like she owned the place and plopped down right across from me. "I trust you're feeling good about things. You really went above and beyond to ruin my life tonight," she grumbled. Now my family looks at me like I'm some kind of low-budget soap opera character, a wandering soul with questionable morals and a penchant for drama. "So, Jessica, is that the grand plan you had in mind? What on earth could have led them to that conclusion?" I inquired. "Did I accidentally send out a signal that I wasn't aware of? Or was it you, perhaps?" The only explanation I can come up with for their opinion is that they happened to walk in on you and your boss, well, let's just say, getting a little too cozy with our furniture, and then you took it upon yourself to tidy up in a rather unconventional way. Is there anyone out there who wouldn't agree that this is precisely how adulteresses act? "If you thought we had a problem, you could have just come to me instead of throwing a block party," she hissed. "Is there a little hiccup in our plans?" I let out a little laugh. "So, let me get this straight, if we had an issue, you would have chosen to chat with me about it instead of hopping into bed with some random dude? Interesting strategy." "Oh, Michael, hurting you was never on my to-do list, I promise." "I honestly didn't think you'd ever catch on," Jessica said, attempting to make sense of the situation. "Oh, so you were aiming for my heart with a bullseye, huh? Inviting folks over for a little surprise shindig for my wonderful wife feels like a bigger gamble than a game of poker with my mother-in-law. Who knew planning a party could be so nerve-wracking?" I inquired. I'm pretty sure that opinion wouldn't win any popularity contests. At long last, she uttered the words I had been bracing myself for from the very beginning. "If you had been around more, this whole mess could have been avoided," Jessica remarked, shaking her head with a mix of exasperation and amusement. "Well, it turns out your lack of attention was the perfect backdrop for James's irresistible charm to swoop in and steal the show. There I was, feeling like a lone sock in the dryer, lost, vulnerable, and just a tad bit lonely." I chuckled, with every fiber of my being, like a kid who just heard the best joke ever. What a silly little creature she was. She was really trying to pin the blame on me, expecting me to apologize for handing her over to another guy like I was some sort of matchmaker gone rogue. As I clicked the bedroom door shut and turned the lock, a wave of satisfaction washed over me, like finally finding the last piece of a jigsaw puzzle, only this one was made of peace and quiet. The shackles had finally been tossed aside. I was feeling as light as a feather, and before long, I'd be officially untethered. I was eagerly anticipating the grand adventure that awaited me in my new life. Thanks for sticking around. And hey, if you're one of those quiet observers, a little thumbs up would be much appreciated. It shines a spotlight on fresh tales waiting to be told.